I thought this would be an interesting view, so I set the camera up so that it can capture how the next piece of plywood is going into place. This will help also show what the fiberglass slots are for on the sides, why we kept that extra bit of tabbing glued on, or fiberglass to the structure. And it'll be what the boards are going to rest on, and then we'll eventually epoxy and fiberglass the new plywood to those old tabs. This is also a good time to see how the pieces all fit together and made up in there together. And that way I can know which one has to go in first, in which order, because some of them can't go in before the others, or else the next one won't be able to fit in there. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. I had to cut these up into sections. They were once bigger pieces of plywood, but we had to cut them up into sections in order to get them to fit up in there. And it worked out pretty good. So pretty surprised this actually worked. And you'll see how it goes here. Just kind of watch.
Here we are again. Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, we're not going away.
Alright, so more challenges in the Galley overhead structure project.
Yep. Well, yeah, we'll get into that later.
Alright, all in all, we are making a good progress and we are gaining more confidence in our repair process. It's messy work, but it's not going to fix itself.
Nope, it's not going to fix itself. So we just got to, stay in it. We're in it for the long haul. So yeah. But yeah, all in all, we're making good, steady progress. And we're moving multiple projects forward at the same time, which is nice. And because, while we're waiting for something to dry or cure, we can go back and work on something else.
So there's a little bit work here and there.
But yeah, our confidence is coming up along as we're progressing with the projects. Our confidence is increasing as well, and we're learning how to do some of these things better all along the way. So it's fun. We're enjoying ourselves, and we definitely enjoy this project. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to be a long one, so stick with us. So if you remember from last week's video, we finally got the first piece of the galley overhead structure, the new plywood, fiberglassed and epoxied into place. That was a pretty big deal to us because we were testing out the concept of glassing in the new plywood into the slots of the old fiberglass tabbing. And after that cured, we found out that was a really solid fit and there was no movement. So we're pretty happy with that. So now going forward, we have that confidence in knowing the rest of the repair method that we're going to use is going to work. So we got this piece in and we're going to get ready to start installing the next section. So hang in there and let's enjoy the ride. This is going to be a messy job all the way through because it's overhead and we're looking up the whole time. But that's all right. We'll get it done. The boat will be better for it in the end. And keep in mind, this is a non-structural repair. This is just mainly to keep that cavity, the overhead cavity, closed. Because on some of the models of the Endeavour 52s, that actually opens up to be an opening hatch up above. As you can see, There's a long ways to go. We got a lot more to do, and even more needs to be cut out back there, but we're gonna fill some of this in first and then cut some more out later, but we're getting there. Now with this piece installed, I can start installing the hatch cover plywood back in place, and yeah, we're gonna make some progress. I'm happy with it. I didn't enjoy it, but I'm happy with it. So anyways, slowly but surely we'll close up this galley eventually, and nobody will ever knew it happened. Okay, now with that first section of plywood fiberglassed into place, now we can prepare to start installing the plywood that we cut out for the forward opening hatch. And we also painted up in that area, so that's going to be nice and clean looking up there, and we'll be able to see if there's any water staining or leaks dripping around there. We wanted to wait to install this piece after the galley overhead plywood was installed, just so we could get everything located properly and the distance and spacing was right. So now we're going to be able to install this next, and this is going to be a big step forward for us. Getting this in is just going to be one more big piece of new plywood structure installed. It'll look good and it'll make us feel good about the project. So we also took the time to continue to paint up in the galley overhead cavity area, and that just lets us know if there's ever anything going on up in here, like a water leak or something. It should leave some kind of streaking on there on the new paint. So we're hoping that we never have to get in here, but in case we do, we'll be able to troubleshoot the problem right away. And so now it's time to cut out another section of the galley overhead rotted plywood, and so we're getting ready to do that, and we marked off the area that we want to cut next, and we're going to try and keep that as accurate as we can, because we want to use that as a template to cut out the new piece of plywood that's going to fit in up in there. We'll epoxy it and fiberglass it into place, so it's going to make another big mess. All right, so I'm gonna use that as a template, so it's very important we get that drawn on there right. So, 'cause I don't know what that's all about, but it's coming out. And then we'll just keep moving our way back. See what we see. Obviously it was getting wet in here, and we stopped that, but the damage is done. Okay, so here's another section we just cut out, and we'll take this and we'll use this as a template, and we'll trace it out over the new piece of plywood, and we'll cut that out and then trim it and fit it to be able to sit up inside those fiberglass tabs, and that'll be the retainer slot for it, and then we'll get it all ready to glass it in there. But we got a lot of cleanup work to do before we're even close to doing that. Okay, now that we have that section of rotted plywood cut out, one of the next steps we need to do is clean out the loose pieces of plywood that are still glued into the fiberglass tabbing, because we're going to use that fiberglass tabbing as like a shelf to support the new piece of plywood when we ready to epoxy and fiberglass that into place. And so we want to get rid of all the loose old pieces of plywood that are still remaining in there. And also there's that piece of plywood that's vertical there. We're not sure what that's all about, so we went ahead and marked it with a black pin, and we'll probably end up removing that just to find out what's behind there. Maybe it's a vault or some kind of a safe or somewhere where they hide all the gold on the boat. I don't know, but we're going to find out what's back there. Could be a lot of something or nothing, but we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, it's a messy job, but we got to get this rotted plywood out of there. And once we have it all cleaned up and painted up and ready to go, we'll start glassing in the next section. But yeah, it's kind of a messy job. We're looking forward to getting through this. Well, I had to cut my my next piece that's going to go in here. I had to cut it in half because I can't get everything in because all the angles and the corners. What I needed to do was wait to put this piece in, stack these ones in, and slide them all together, but I guess I got ahead of myself. Anyways, it's all gonna work out. So, and then we just cut a new piece out right here, so we're gonna make a template for that back home, and we'll bring it up next time. But yeah, we're slowly working our way back to, we're closing this in and working our way back here also. And eventually we're gonna have all this out and replaced with new wood. So interesting thing here. I'm not sure what's behind here, but it's in pretty solid. So whatever it is, it's been fiberglassed in there. But you can see from the previous leak that we fixed, it's no longer getting wet, but it was getting wet for a very long period of time, and this is all rotted. So I got to get it out because I need to see what's behind there, and it's gonna bother us if we leave it. And although it sounds pretty solid, the first layer is delaminated, but whatever's behind it is pretty solid. So we could probably leave it in. I could probably just, you know, put some epoxy in between those layers, bond them back together, but I don't like doing band-aids, so I don't know. We'll figure it out. So anyways, that's where we're at for now. We're going to start fiberglassing the new piece in. So when we're cleaning out the plywood out of those slots, the fiberglass slots up there, this is what it looks like when we pull it out. It just comes out in little sections like this. It looks like at one time that was really good plywood that they were using to build a boat with, but it wasn't protected with anything to protect moisture from getting inside and causing it to rot and delaminate. So either way, no matter how good the quality of wood is, once water gets in there and starts doing its thing, it's going to damage it. So glad we got it out, and we'll get it all cleaned up. Okay, now we're ready to fiberglass tab in our next piece of plywood in the overhead cutout area here, so we're going to make another mess. Okay, well, we just got the next section fiberglassed in, and then I put some fiberglass tape on it. It's epoxied in. I made a big mess, so I think that means it's going to be good. Usually when it's a big mess, everything holds pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, it's not a structural piece. It's more just to close up this space, and then there's going to be boards mounting this way, and the vinyl is going to close up against it. So more than anything, it's just to close up this open space here. But we want to do a good job anyway, so we're going to make sure that no water, if there is any leaks up there, water is not going to be a problem. The boards are sealed with epoxy, and then I'll reseal this with epoxy here. But yeah, we're getting there. So anyways, lots of fun, big mess fiberglassing. So next thing we'll do is we'll get this board right here. We'll mount that right up here in the white area. So that's for the hatch cover. Trim actually mounts to that board. So anyways, that board's also coated with epoxy. So anyways, we're getting there, making a little bit of progress. I thought this would be an interesting view, so I set the camera up so that it can capture how the next piece of plywood's going into place. This will help also show what the fiberglass slots are for on the sides, why we kept that extra bit of tabbing glued on, or fiberglass to the structure. And it'll be what the boards are going to rest on, and then we'll eventually epoxy and fiberglass and new plywood to those old tabs. Okay. This is also a good time to see how the pieces all fit together and made up when they're together, and that way I can know which one has to go in first in which order, because some of them can't go in before the others, or else the next one won't be able to fit in there. So it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. I had to cut these up into sections. They were once bigger pieces of plywood, but we had to cut them up into sections in order to get them to fit up in there. And it worked out pretty good, so pretty surprised this actually worked. And you'll see how it goes here. Just kind of watch. Wrong piece. So before we install the next piece of plywood, we're gonna put lots of thickened epoxy up on the fiberglass slots, up against the facing edge of the board that's already glassed into place, and then we'll put it on the sides and the forward edge of the new board that's going to go in place as well. There's going to be plenty of extra left over if we put it in just right. Hopefully it doesn't drip all over the place, but working overhead like this, there's no guarantees. What? So once these sections are joined together, we want to push them together firmly, but not so much that we squeeze out all the thickened epoxy. So we have it pushed together pretty well. There's a good bond, and now we're just fairing in the thickened epoxy so that it's going to cover that seam, the joint really well. And then once we have that spread out really nicely, we're going to put some fiberglass tape over that. We're not trying to make this super structurally strong, but we want to make it as strong as it used to be, and just do a good job while we're here. Now the next step is to wet the plywood down and put some fiberglass resin over it. In this case it's going to be epoxy, but we're going to paint this non-thickened epoxy over the seam that we just put the thickened epoxy on. And we got plenty of resin going on up here, which is not going to be a bad thing in this case, but it is overhead, so it's going to drip and get places where we don't see it until later, and then we'll have to chisel it off the countertop and the stove and floor and everything that we don't want it to be on. It's going to make a mess, so we won't see it until it's too late. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm doing, just wetting everything down before we put the fiberglass cloth on it. And now that we're now putting the fiberglass cloth on, and so it sticks really good because we already pre-wetted the surface. And then once we have it on there, we just make sure we try to work all the air bubbles out best we can. And then we take the brush and kind of dab on some more epoxy at the same time. And we're also kind of popping the air bubbles out with the tip of the brush, just kind of dabbing it as we go. And it works out pretty good. So that's what we're doing here. Working on this edge back here with the foam kind of rolled back, the vinyl rolled back out of the way. It makes it really difficult, but we don't want to take that vinyl down all the way because it's old vinyl and we're not sure we're going to be able to save it or not at this point. So we're hoping that we can, but we just don't want to take it down all the way and then not be able to get it back into the right spot. So just trying to work around it as best we can, trying not to drip too much epoxy on it. And we'll just be really careful as much as we can, but it's very inconvenient to have it where it's at. Okay. Okay, now with a few of the sections of the new plywood put in the galley overhead area, now we can work on putting the new piece of plywood that replaced the rotted piece around the large opening hatch. And all that piece does is really gives the teak trim ring something to attach to and the vinyl something to staple down to. It's totally non-structural and that's all it is, but we want to make sure that we put a new piece in there and it's going to be nice and protected. It's sealed with epoxy and then we'll paint it as well. But either way, we got a new piece going in there, and that's a big step forward for us. That means we can start closing some of the vinyl up in that area as well. Now, this might not seem like a big deal to most people, but to us, this piece here is a big deal. Because once we get the hatch put back in, we can put the close the vinyl back up in this area and put the teak trim ring back in. And we're going to be able to start putting the new pieces of
epoxied plywood in here, and this is all going to be all new all the way back. So anyways, it's a big step in the right direction. We got a new piece of another, oops, still wet. Anyways, we still got, that's kind of nasty, but we got a new piece of plywood put in today, so, and it's all fiberglassed into place, which is nice. And yeah, we are making progress. Not a lot, but still progress.
We're really happy with the progress so far, getting these large pieces of plywood in the overhead installed, and the hatch trim ring for the forward piece of plywood also, getting that installed. Those are big steps for us, so we're really happy with that and getting some confidence as we're moving forward.
Okay, so thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
You enjoyed this week's video or the work that we show you.
Yep, we had a pretty good progress for this week, and we're continuing to move forward, and putting in that first piece of plywood up in the galley overhead really proves out our concept as far as adding those pieces of plywood in sections, and then fiberglassing and epoxying them into place as we go. That's working out really good, and that's a real solid install. I think it's even better than what was installed at the factory. So making the boat better than when it was new is always a good thing. And so that's what we're kind of trying to do with all these projects. We're trying to improve on what was new and make it even better along the way. So yeah.
Yep, and we're always excited to see even just a little bit of progress.
Oh yeah, I mean, just fiberglassing that first piece of plywood in, and how solid it is when after it cured and I knocked on it. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. I feel really good about the work we're doing, and I think that's just going to make the boat even stronger in that area.
Yep,
so,
like
yeah,
us.
Exactly. Challenges make as long as you get through them, everything's better and stronger in the end. So
anyways, thanks for watching, guys. If you are not subscribed yet, please subscribe down below.
Ding!
Stay tuned.
Yep, stay tuned. We really appreciate you sticking with us and being patient as we evolve through this video making process, and doing the work at the same time and trying to explain it is a bit of a challenge. We just kind of want to get through the work and then show you what we did. And we're trying to show you as we go. So we'll get better on that along the way as well. So thanks for sticking with us. See ya.
Okay.
Now there's a nice looking shell. I'd keep that one.
And what's that?
My idea. Oh, we got a boat coming. It's this guy. Nice. Dang. 5 engines on the back. That was sweet.